Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. Now, I have a little bit of a reputation for being a huge fan of contrast paint. So to start off 2021, I wanted to go ahead and talk about my top 10 favorite contrast paints. Ten. We're gonna start with number 10. And my number 10 paint is Talassar Blue. It is a nice primary paint. It is a brilliant blue color tone that I really like. And one of the things that I enjoy a lot about it is that it actually goes on pretty smoothly. Contrast blue paint can sometimes be a little splotchy looking, but Talassar Blue I have consistently found goes on pretty smooth, and that's kind of why I gravitate towards it. Plus, it is a really just like gem colored blue, which I really like, and it kind of reminds me of what GW is doing now for their ultramarines. And so I actually really like this as an ultramarine blue color. I know that there is an ultramarine blue paint, and that is also spectacular, but I just like the vivid color palette of Talassar Blue, which is why it's my number 10. My number 9 paint is Iyaden Yellow, another primary color that I think works great as a non-metallic gold. I use it all the time for that, but it also is just one of those yellows that actually comes out of the paint pot really easily and goes on smoothly. Yellow is one of those colors in painting that is very tricky. Sometimes it can be somewhat problematic and occasionally hard to get like an actual just good solid color tone down. Iyaden Yellow, I get that almost every time with like 1 or 2 coats of the paint, and it's brilliant like that. I absolutely love this color. I mean, look at him. He is a great foundation for an Imperial Fist mini. And I don't think you can get this with other paints, especially not yellows. I know there are some tricks to painting yellow that I've not actually tried with contrast yet. I know you can put pink beneath as a foundation and then put yellow over top of it to get a more brilliant color that just keeps a truer yellow tone to it. And I don't know if that will work with contrast paint, but regardless, it works just super well straight out of the pot. So that's why it is my number 9 paint. For number 8, our last primary color, Flesh Terror's Red. Now, contrast paint actually has 2 really great reds, Flesh Terrors and Blood Angels. I think that you can choose whichever one that you prefer, but I specifically chose Flesh Terror's Red because I prefer the slightly cooler color tone of it. It is a deep, rich, brilliant red color that I think works really nicely as a blood tone, honestly, as well as an armor color for like glowing red evil eyes, as a cloth, as a gemstone color. It's just so versatile. You get this, I just look at that cherry color tone. Just look at it. Look at how red and gorgeous this miniature is. It is beautiful, and I just absolutely prefer this. And as you might know, it's the Hobby Nights color for my Space Marine chapter. So I'm a little bit biased towards it, but hey, this is my top 10 list, and that's why it's coming in at number 8. For my number 7 paint, I picked Guilliman Flesh. Now, you can absolutely pick any of the contrast paint flesh tones that you want. There are a lot of them, and they are all brilliant. I just happened to pick this one because, one, it's the first one that I grabbed when I first was getting into contrast paints. It creates a really nice, slightly reddish hue that I personally prefer. You can easily very thin this, let me say that sentence again. You can very easily thin this paint and get a very pale flesh tone, or you can layer it and get a much darker flesh tone, so it's very versatile. And honestly, it works great for not only like humanoids, but as well as like monsters, an alternative fur color, an alternative hair color. You get a lot of great options with this paint, and it is my number 7. For when you're wanting to paint up wood tones, dirt, dark flesh tones, fur, like really dark fur and hair and everything like that, my go-to paint, my number 6 paint, is Wyldwood. It works really well. You can very easily thin this using contrast medium or water to get a much thinner, or not thinner, but like paler, more, what's the word, taupey sort of color out of it, because it has a really deep, moss isn't the correct word, but that's the word that my brain keeps wanting to come back to. But it's got this really great deep taupe color tone that you can then thin to make a lighter wood tone, or keep straight out of the pot and have it be that brilliant, deep, dark chocolate brown, which I absolutely love. I've not painted any armor in this color tone prior to painting this marine, but after I've done this, this gives me some ideas for just, I don't know, an interesting Space Marine color choice, because I don't feel like I see this color used in armor very often, but it works really nice, and I just love the rich color palette out of Wyldwood, so it is my number 6 paint. Oh, hey, didn't see you guys there. Well, while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. We introduce the top 5 with Apothecary White, because this is definitely a color that you want to have. You can mix it with a lot of your other colors to make them lighter, which is fantastic. It also works really, really nicely just by itself, although I will say, make sure that you shake this pot a lot prior to you using it, because it separates very, very easily, and it likes to re-separate as you're using it. So just make sure that you're shaking it thoroughly every time you're wanting to go and use it and everything, because it can end up being very, very blue if you do that, which can sometimes work to your advantage. It's actually one of the reasons that I like Apothecary White, because it has some versatility like that. As you can see with this guy, he doesn't have a very brilliant blue color to him, but the pot, if you look at it, kind of does. And you can get that effect actually on the miniature, or you can get this really nice, just white scars look on him. He is beautiful. I love the way that this paint works. Not only does it work on armor, because I kind of gushed over that a little bit, but one of the other things that you can use this paint color for is obviously cloth. It works really great for that. You can use it as a white hair color if you want. It works brilliantly for that. I've done it a couple of times and I really, really like it. It's also an interesting way to sort of get a foundation look on your bases for when you're doing a wintry scene, but you're not necessarily wanting to put either like that white powdery texture that you can get through the texture paint, or the powders you actually can put down for like flock and everything like that. That was the word I was missing there. So it's a great way to sort of give that icy vibe without necessarily using those specific textures. And I really, really enjoy that. So it's my number 5 paint. Basilicanum Grey. It is my number 4 pick for my list. And let me tell you why, because I absolutely adore this paint color. You want to talk about a paint that I use in almost every project? Basilicanum Grey, I think, is one of them. So it is a brilliant, just gray tone that you can use as stone. If you deepen it a little bit, it works actually really well as a non-metallic metal. You can also use this as a shade over top of an actual metallic to sort of soften that down as an alternative for Nuln Oil. And it just, you can deepen it. You can actually, you could, in theory, get just this paint, and if you didn't want to pick up Black Templar, for example, you could actually use this as a black, because you could layer it really heavily. I wouldn't suggest that, because it can get a little muddied down and everything that way. Once you start layering contrast paint a little too much, it can sometimes lose its effect. But by itself, just put on to really anything that you want to look sort of metal, it works great with. Also, the other nice thing that I like about this, and the reason that I like to use it as sort of a non-metallic foundation for my metals on really a lot of my stuff, is that you can actually dry brush back over top this with, say, Necron Compound or some other actual metallic color, and you get a very, very nice effect with it that just sings to me. I absolutely love Basilicanum Grey. That's why it's in my number 4 space. We're down to the last 3 paints in my list, and for number 3, I chose Black Templar. Not only does it work as a great just armor color, hair color, fur color, it also works beautifully as the foundation for any metallics. You put this underneath and you can then put your metallics over top and get a very opaque finish, just like you would with, say, Chaos Black, or if you had primed the miniature in black to start with. The reason that I like using Black Templar this way, and the reason that I bring it up, is because I find I use contrast paint a lot, so I tend to want to prime my miniatures using Wraithbone, Greyseer, or White, which doesn't tend to work super well with painting metals. So in order to basically allow myself to still use all of my other contrast paints, but still get away with using some metallics, Black Templar works as my foundation, and it's just really, really good, and it's my number 3 paint. For my number 2 color, because I am a Death Guard player, and I of course had to put a Death Guard color in here, I chose Plaguebearer Flesh. This is probably, I mean, legitimately, this is probably my second most favorite paint to use. I don't use it super often when I'm not using or painting my Death Guard, obviously, because it's kind of very specific to them, but I have found that not only does it work great as a plague-ridden flesh color, it actually is a beautiful foundation for a really nice orc flesh. As you can see here on my Marine, I painted up his shoulders in Plaguebearer Flesh, but then I put a Bielton shade over top of it, and you get this really lovely, like, apple green color, and it just speaks to me. I really, really like it, and that is why Plaguebearer Flesh, not only just because, like I said, I'm a Death Guard player, this is right up my alley, but it's a great foundation. I use it in a lot of things. It's probably one of my go-to paints, and I will never not use it. Before we move on to my favorite paint, we're going to talk about a couple of honorable mentions. And to start off with, I chose Warp Lightning. This is a beautiful green tone that I absolutely love using on gems, eyes, cloth, but also works great for your precious, precious warp stone. It's brilliant, goes on very smoothly, and I just really like it. Not only that, I chose Magos Purple, because if you've looked at this channel, you might go, I think this girl's favorite color is purple. You'd be correct. I absolutely love purple, and the reason I chose this one over, say, Shyish Purple is because I like that this one has a little bit more versatility. It is a warm color tone. It definitely leans a little bit more towards the red side of purple than the blue side, but it is very easily manipulated to be a cool tone. You can put like Shyish Purple over top of it, which is a really nice shade, or just put a blue over top of it and sort of deepen that purple color tone and sort of push it out of that red tone, which just makes it super useful and a little bit more versatile than some other colors. And last but not least, for my honorable mentions, Gryph-Hound Orange. This I use all the time. If you've watched any of my Death Guard painting videos, you've seen it, you know it's my trim color. It works beautifully as a rust. I really like it for that, but it also is a great fur color, hair color, and just anytime you want a really nice orange pumpkin color, this is your color. For my number 1 paint. If you guys didn't see this coming, well, then you probably haven't been on this channel for very long. And if you did, you've probably been here from the very beginning, because my number 1 paint is Skeleton Horde. I use this paint on, I think, every single paint job I've ever done. I don't know a point where I've not used this color. It works brilliantly as not only a bone tone, a bone tone. Not only does it work great for skeletons, and if you're into 40k, let's face it, you're painting a lot of skeletons because they're everywhere. The Imperium is just littered with them. Yeah, it's everywhere. You will always be needing this paint. But it's not just good for bones. It also works brilliantly as a just very pale flesh color that still looks like it's got a little bit of warmth to it, like it's still alive. So not quite like an undead color, but just very, very pale. It also works really good as a rope color, as a soft leather color. You can use it as a shade over top other colors to sort of deepen them and enrichen those color tones. It is the most useful color I have seen, and it is really awesome because you can use it straight out of the pot without problems. Like, you can just dip your paintbrush in, you know, don't want too much paint on it, obviously. You don't want to go insane with it, but you can just, you know, get a little bit of paint on there, put it onto your miniature, and you immediately get a just gorgeous look. The only disadvantage to Skeleton Horde, say over some of the other colors, especially the darker ones, is that you can't really put this over top like grays or other darker color tones, obviously, and have it really stand out. So if you're priming and doing a zenithal, for example, and you use, because you can do this with contrast, I really, really like it. You might have seen it in my Tyranid painting video, but when you prime with gray and then you do a white over top, Skeleton Horde gets this like taupey greenish like brown hue to it, which I actually really like, but that would be the only time where you might have some concerns and you might not exactly get the results that you're looking for with this paint. But otherwise, it it's my number one. I don't know, like I definitely could rearrange some of these other ones into different orders and be perfectly happy, but I think Skeleton Horde will always be at the top. That has been my top 10 list for contrast paints that are just my favorites, the ones that I use the most, that I like to go to, and that I probably would never not have as a person who just really likes to use contrast paints when painting miniatures. Let me know what you guys thought of that in the comments below. What are your favorite contrast paints if you use them? And are you more willing to use them now that maybe I've explained them a little bit more and shown you my favorites and how versatile they can be? Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Angela, you've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys!